Hi, I'm Lizzie. Thanks for watching. Today we are going to learn how to make a Victoria sponge. And if you enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe to the channel, and there should be a little link that will come up just there. So let's get started. So my method for making a perfect Victoria sponge is very straightforward, and as long as you can remember to make all of your weights of ingredients the same, you can't really go wrong. So for this recipe, you're going to need some good quality unsalted butter, some free-range eggs, some self-raising flour, some castor sugar, and a little bit of vanilla extract. Don't buy vanilla essence because it's nowhere near as nice. Vanilla extract is a much better quality product, so it's worth buying good quality. You only need a really little bit. So my method for doing a Victoria sponge is that I will weigh my eggs first. Whatever weight my eggs is, I make everything else exactly the same. So I've got 3 6-inch lined tins here. So I've greased them, and then I've put greaseproof or baking parchment in the bottom of each one. And it's important that you do that so you don't get anything stuck on the bottom of the tin. So I'm gonna get this to 0, and I'm just gonna weigh out my first egg. Okay, so that weighs 52 grams. So it's not a massive egg, that's fine. And I'm gonna weigh 4 more. Okay, so I have got 265 grams of eggs in here, and I just want to give them a light little beat, just to get them all mixed up. And I've made all my other ingredients, so my butter, my sugar, my self-raising flour are all also 265 grams. So everything weighs the same. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to place my sugar and my butter, which is at room temperature. It's important that you keep your butter at room temperature so that it will mix and cream nicely. If your butter's too hard, then it won't cream very well and it'll affect the whole consistency. So you want your butter, I'll just pull one out, you want it to be a bit squidgy, which is lovely. And then I'm just going to pop that underneath. And I'm using, it's called the K-beater attachment. I'm going to pop this down and pop it on. Okay. I'm just going to let this beat for a minute or 2 until it's all mixed really nicely. And it's not too grainy, it's quite nice and creamy. Okay, so I've been creaming my butter and my sugar for about 2 minutes. And now it's really nice and creamy, and it's all mixed really well together. So I am going to add in probably a teaspoon of my vanilla extract, or 2, make it nice and flavoured. And then I've scraped down the side as well, just so it's not stuck to the side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back under my mixer, and I'm going to mix a little bit of egg, a little bit of self-raising flour, a little bit of egg, a little bit of self-raising flour. And I find doing it that way prevents any curdling, because there's nothing worse than your cake batter starting to look like scrambled egg. It's just never going to be a good look. So I'm going to put a little bit of my egg mix in, pop my mixer back down, and then just let that mix. And as soon as that's all mixed together, I'm going to start to add probably 2 tablespoons of my self-raising flour. So just going to go in with 1. And I'm going to keep doing self-raising flour, egg until it's all mixed. Okay, so I have now mixed in all of my egg and my self-raising flour, and you can see now that the mix just, to me, looks gorgeous. It's all really evenly mixed, all looks really nice. So I'm just gonna take this off from underneath and show you this here. It's quite a thick mix, that's a good thing. You want a nice thick mix. It's quite a golden yellow in colour. That's great. So I'm just gonna take my paddle attachment off and get all the batter off this too. I am now going to split it into my 3 tins. If you want to be exactly accurate, you can weigh each tin as you go. So you can put some in each one and weigh it, check they're all exactly the same. I tend to do it by eye, so I will just Put a dollop in one. In the next one. And it's worth mentioning as well, this volume of cake mix, I'm doing 3 6-inch tins here, but this will all 5 eggs, and then matching the weight with all your rest of your ingredients will also make 2 8-inch tins. So if you want a 2-layered sponge, which is slightly larger, then you can just do the same but with 2 8-inch tins. But I prefer to have maybe a slightly smaller cake but taller. It's just aesthetically the way I like it. So I will always go for 3 6-inch when I'm doing them. Okay, so now I'm just going to flatten them with the back of my spoon. And you do want to do this, you want to make sure that all of your sponges are nice and flat when they go in the oven, and this will help for them to rise evenly. Okay, so I've got my 3 uncooked sponges here ready to go in the oven. I preheated the oven at 160 degrees. If you've got a fan oven, I stick to 160. If you haven't got a fan oven, I'd maybe go up to 170. I'm going to start them off at 15 minutes, and after 15 minutes I'm probably going to need to cover them with foil because the top will be nice and golden, but if I put a knife into it and took it out, it might still be a little bit raw in the middle. So I'm going to then cover them with foil for 5 minutes. Okay, so I've just taken these out of the oven and I've just popped a knife down through the centre and checked that it's come out clean. As long as your knife comes out clean, your sponge should be baked correctly. So I'm also just going to run a knife around the edge of the tin on each one, just to make sure when I turn them out nothing sticks. Okay, now I'm going to leave them in the tins for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to turn them out onto my cooling rack and let them go completely cold before I start buttercreaming them. So now your sponges are completely cool, and it's important to wait till they're completely cool so that when you put your buttercream on, they're not slipping and sliding everywhere. I've also, I'm going to flip it over, I've just trimmed off anything that was slightly uneven or domed on the top. Even when a cake comes out completely flat, I always take off the very top layer because it's like the crumb layer. So you want to get down to not the fresher sponge, but the nicer sponge just underneath. So I'm going to flip it over and pop it on my stand there. And now I've just made some buttercream, and I have done how to make buttercream in another tutorial. So if you look down on my channel and you want to learn how I've done this recipe, it's on there. And I'll put a link to it as well in the description underneath. So the way I do my jam buttercream is in rings, and I do it like this because often I find if I do a layer of buttercream, a layer of jam, a layer of buttercream, the jam can tend to slide a little bit. So I prefer to do mine to actually pipe it on in rings, and then I miss a little gap and I pipe on the next ring of buttercream, miss a little gap, pipe on the next ring of buttercream. And you can, oh, I've got a little hole. You can add in more or less if you want to. So I've got a little hole there, so I've got some nice squiggle situation going on. That's fine. I'm going to use raspberry jam because I prefer it to strawberry. But if strawberry is what you like, go for gold. So I've got my raspberry jam here. And also, if you want to just pop it on with a palette knife, that's fine too. I just find this way it feels more secure, especially if you're taking it to a friend's house and you've got to drive with it in the car. I would rather know that my sponge wasn't going to slip and slide, and when I arrived at my friend's house I wasn't going to have one tear of the sponge gone wonky. So I've got one there. I'll pop my next layer on that one and do my next round of buttercream. There's that little hole. I'll just pop my finger over that. Okay, so I've still got a bit of space for my jam. Just going to pop this. I love raspberry jam. It's so nice. Okay, so there we go. I've got my jam on there. And then I'm going to put my final layer on top. And you can put buttercream on top if you want to. I prefer actually just to sprinkle over a bit of icing sugar. It's just a personal preference. I think it looks nicer. and you don't need very much of this. So I'm just going to pop it in my sieve and sprinkle it over. And there we go. So that is how I make my Victoria sponge, and I honestly follow those rules every time. I weigh my eggs, I weigh everything else, and I go for it. Thanks for watching, and please do click on the link to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon.